welcome to the X-22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 446, and today's date is August 20th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Central Bankers, U.S. Government Have Set the Stage to Bomb Syria. Now, let's back up for a second. Yesterday I reported that there was a no-fly zone over Syria, no American planes, and we saw this to the buildup of the bombing in Iraq back in August 8th, and we know that Congress is on vacation, and we have seen a huge amount of events occur during this month. It's just amazing to me. And now we see that the Islamic State created a video with James Foley, allegedly, and they're showing that he was beheaded, and the Islamic State is now saying, because you bombed us, we attacked the United States by decapitating this reporter. Now, I looked at the video, and a couple things that come out at me, and I'm looking at it, and things don't seem right. First of all, the Islamic State decided to use a two-camera shot, which is kind of strange, and they're showing the close-up on one side of his face. Now, I thought to myself, why would they be doing that? Makes no sense to me. Why, if you're going to do a close-up, why didn't you just come closer in with the one camera? Why do you need a two-camera shot? Then I started looking at pictures of James Foley, and I noticed that he has a little freckle, birthmark, on the side of his nose. And if he's facing you, it would be on the left side, but it would be his right side, right above his lip. And then I started looking at the videos and all the corporate media and all the other videos that are coming out, and what I noticed was they're all showing him from the opposite side, even the pictures of him. Now, when you look at the video, and I blew up the photographs, and you can take a look at them, they're on the x22report.com site, go to Sentinel Alerts, scroll there, you can see it, or you can go to the people, and I also posted it there where people can comment on these pictures. Now, what doesn't make sense is that the freckle is gone. He also has one on his chin, so I'm looking for markers, because if this is really the James Foley, then we should be seeing the same markers on the face. But I blew up the pictures, I compared two sets, I looked at many others, I cannot find this birthmark. But on his everyday pictures, when you go to Google and you see all the pictures of James Foley, every picture has the birthmark. Now, this is very odd. Now, if you look at the corporate media, you're seeing only the left side of his face in all these pictures, and even in the video with the Islamic State person, they only showed the left side. So we can see what's going on right here. This most likely is a false flag event, because now what they're saying and what they're trying to push out there is that this is an attack on the United States. Now, it's really not an attack on the United States, but what they're doing right now is they're building the propaganda. And of course, we've heard there is another reporter out there, and if the bombing continues, they're going to decapitate the next person. So we can see right now that they're really pushing this agenda. And we know that the United States, central bankers, and all the other private central bank countries always seem to push their agenda through terror. Now, there are reports out there saying that this took place in Syria. How interesting, because we realize there's a no-fly zone. Then all of a sudden we had this event. And we also have to remember that President Obama came back to the White House right before this happened. Coincidence? Is this all just a coincidence? No. We are going to see more events like this occur during this month and into September. They are building up to strike into Syria, to follow the Islamic State into each one of these Middle East countries. You can see how this story is starting to form right now. Actually, you can see how their entire plan, you can see what they're doing right now. Now, of course, we don't know what these events are going to be, but we're seeing quite a bit of them right now. I mean, as soon as Congress goes on vacation, we have an Iraqi bombing. They're still on vacation. Ferguson ignites with police coming down on the people, and there's agent provocateurs in Ferguson. And now we see a reporter, an American reporter, allegedly being decapitated, which I really don't think it's him. from the evidence that I see and everything that I've been looking at. So let's get into the economic collapse news, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go down the report. Now, Argentina, as we know, they owe a lot of money because of their debt. They went into default. They owe the creditors, and right now, what they have done last night, President Kirchner stunned its creditors when she announced what amounts to a cram-down plan for holdouts, in which all bonds would be stripped of their existing indentures and converted to local law bonds, or as some would call it, a scorched earth transaction that burns all bridges and goodwill with the international creditor community and likely leaves Argentina unable to access global capital markets for the foreseeable future. Now, yes, that is for the West, but I'm wondering, because they're getting ready to join the BRIC nations, we understand that China is loaning them billions of dollars and they're making deals with China. I'm wondering right now if they're saying, you know what, we're stepping away from the West. We don't care. We're moving towards the BRICS, and it seems like this is what's happening. Now, I talk about this quite a bit, about those people who've been taking out car loans, and of course it's a lot of these subprime people, people who really have bad credit, and most of these people, it's no fault of their own. The economy is very, very poor. Finding a job is very, very hard. We're in a collapse situation. And most of the people who are being laid off from these high-paying jobs are having a very difficult time. A lot of them take a lower-paying job or a couple part-time jobs. But again, everyone looks at the new car. They love the new car smell. They love a new car because it hopefully doesn't break down. And we can see that a lot of people went ahead and they got these loans to purchase these cars. And what we're seeing right now is that these cars, these auto loans, are becoming delinquent, and the repo man is getting very, very busy as a growing number of car and truck owners are struggling to make their monthly auto loan payments. Now, we knew this was going to happen. They're starting to realize that they can't make these payments, and all this propped up that the car industry is doing well is starting to fall apart. Experian, which analyzes millions of auto loans, said Wednesday that the percentage of those loans that were delinquent or ended up in default with the vehicle being repossessed surged in the second quarter of this year. In fact, the auto loan subprime bubble may be the latest to burst after the student loan, as the rate of car repossessions jumped to 70.2% in the second quarter, with much of that increase coming from the finance companies not run by automakers, banks, or credit unions. The New York Fed is out there saying, oh, don't worry about this. This is completely contained. Well, we've heard this before. We heard this before, right before the stock market crash of 2008 that brought us into this recession, and they're doing it once again. They're out there feeding us false hope, telling us that everything is fine, we're in a recovery, they've contained it, no need to worry. But listen, we know what's going to happen. We're approaching October. We see all the signs. We see what the government's trying to do. They're trying to control the nation. They're trying to push the agenda of martial law inside the country because they realize everything is falling apart. We see what they're doing in the Middle East and in Ukraine. They're pushing the agenda for war, and they are in overdrive now. They are not going to let up. Now, Caterpillar, when we had that great crash in 2008, Caterpillar went 19 consecutive declines after that. And they broke a record, saying, because sales were terrible after the 2008, 2009 crash, and it continued on to like 2010, 2011. It was 19 consecutive. Right now, it has been 20 consecutive downturns, and it broke the previous record of when we crashed in 2008. So what does that tell you? Because right now, their sales in July, negative 9% year over year. This is no recovery. We are headed for a complete disaster. Now, China right now, they are preparing in September to have the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and they're launching their international bullion exchange in yuan in September. China is moving closer to positioning itself as the physical gold trading hub of the world and the world's gold price discovery center. It is a natural progression for the largest economy in the world and for the world's largest gold buyer, importer, and indeed producer. The Shanghai Gold Exchange plans to start bullion trading in the city's free trade zone on September 26th. The gold contract will be priced and settled in yuan, not dollars. The zone will have a vault capable of holding about 1,500 metric tons of gold, which can either be imported into China or be in transit to other markets. China has allowed 3 more banks, including foreign lender, to import gold. Sources with direct knowledge of the matter said, as the world's top gold buyer gears up for its strongest effort yet to gain pricing power of the metal. So we can see right now things are about to change quite drastically, and the United States central bankers do not want this to happen. They're going to do everything they possibly can to completely stop this. And how are they going to do this? Yes, with a special event. And you can see they are gearing up. They are in overdrive right now. They're really pushing the agenda. They need the event. They need the war. They need this to start because we know the manipulated GDP, unemployment, inflation, completely separate and apart from the real economy indicators. Not even close anymore. And of course, the stock market is going up, gold is being suppressed, and they cannot maintain this forever. And eventually, it will come crumbling down, especially when the Middle East, the tribes, take over the governments and no longer use the dollar. Once this happens, game over. And this is why they're working so hard to push war, to cover it up. Now, when I say cover it up, and I mentioned this before, I don't mean that they're going to cover it up and everything is going to be fine. What that means is they're just going to blame it on someone else. The collapse is going to continue here in the United States because the value of the dollar is going to continually decrease as more and more people around the world say, you know what, I'm not dealing with the dollar, it's toxic, and they're getting rid of it. So the collapse will continue here, and this is why DHS, local law enforcement, what you're seeing in Ferguson, this is why this is all being done right now, because they realize once this happens, there's going to be riots, there's going to be anarchy, people are going to be shocked, they're not going to know what to do, they're going to raid the supermarkets, and we're going to see troops on the street, we're going to see martial law. They are getting prepared for all this. Now, of course, the government thought that, they'd be able to maintain this, and they thought they'd be able to bring revenue in through Obamacare, which was never for the people, which was not created to give people like real health care. And what we're seeing right now is that there are a lot of taxes within Obamacare, because all this is a revenue type of program to bring revenue into the government to pay for this debt. And what we're seeing right now is that it's not working. The Obamacare tax on medical devices is falling short of its revenue target because thousands of companies aren't paying it, according to a government audit. An audit found the IRS received only 5,107 returns. They expected about 9,000. And this is a 24% shortfall in revenue. Now, you have to remember, they also have taxes for those people that are not taking the health insurance. They're penalized. Business penalties, they've kind of deferred right now, but there are other taxes intertwined into here. Now, these taxes, just from medical devices, they thought they were going to bring in about $29 billion over the coming decade. And right now, they are not seeing this whatsoever, and it looks like the companies are just not paying it. Now, when you place taxes on medical devices, these always get then passed down to the consumer, the patients, and you're going to see the premiums rise in insurance because the doctors are going to request more, and it's going to continually happen like this because the doctors are really paying for the taxes on this equipment. And this is a cascading domino effect, and this is why we're also seeing premiums go up. And this is not just the only reason, but what we're seeing right now is this whole entire system is falling apart. Now, we talk about how the European Union, the United States, they're all getting ready for riots. We understand that London has purchased 3 water cannons The EU have their EU police, and they can be dispatched to any country that is having problems with protesters, riots, and now experts at a European Union think tank are demanding that the EU prepare to put down strikes and protests with military force. In the study by the European Union Institute for Security Studies, the authors bluntly state that in the face of these developments, the Army will have to be used increasingly for the policing duties to protect the rich from the anger of the poor. Now, just think about what they're saying here. The people that do not have will be so angry that they'll take it out on the rich. This sounds like we're going back to the days of serfs, royalty, and, who cares? Let them live in mud and slop, and we will protect ourselves. So they are preparing for riots. They are preparing for what is coming because they know this system is crashing. And those people that do not have, who are not prepared, that do not have great sums of precious metal and other type of real assets, are going to be very angry. And yes, it's going to happen in Europe, it's going to happen in Canada, it's going to happen in Australia, it's going to happen in the United States, and we are definitely seeing governments getting prepared for this. Now, it looks like congressmen are out there, and it looks like they're trying to call for restrictions on Pentagon's 1033 program. This is giving the military assets to local law enforcement, but guess what? It's a little too late right now. I mean, they should have been up on this way before this, but of course they're too busy, getting investment ideas or tips or other things, and they're worried about themselves. And always when a crisis occurs, they're always out there saying, "Oh, look what we need to do." You know what? It's too late already. You're not going to stop it. Most of the local law enforcement already have the military assets that they need. More is coming in, and I think on the shtfplan.com they had a database where you can check to see in your county what your police have received at this time. Now, it looks like a federal judge is now ruling, and also, let me just say this, Dianne Feinstein is out there saying that Obama has to take executive action, California has to take executive action to ban the AR-15. Now, a federal judge is out there, and a ruling in Maryland, they are saying that the AR-15 and AK-style rifles and other magazine-fed semi-auto rifles with certain features fall outside the Second Amendment protection as dangerous and unusual arms. And this is coming from a 47-page opinion by U.S. District Judge Catherine C. Blake. Well, what do you mean it falls outside? Well, let's continue here. Upon review of all parties' evidence, the court seriously doubts that the banned assault long guns are commonly possessed for lawful purposes, particularly self-defense in the home, which is at the core of the Second Amendment right. Wait, what? Wait, the core of the Second Amendment right is the self-defense of your home? No, that's not the core. Let me read the Second Amendment here. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let's see. So the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with self-defense in your home. And, of course, this judge is just making things up at this time. And it went on to say that she is inclined to find the weapon fall outside the Second Amendment protection as dangerous and unusual. Well, there's nothing unusual about it. Most of the police force are using these type of weapons. And look what they're doing. They shoot more people than the actual people of America. So we can see right now what they're trying to do. They're making a last-ditch effort to get the guns away from the people, because what are they worried about? They're worried about the people having the means to overthrow the government. Now, of course, we as a peaceful people will protest, will come to will come to Washington in the millions and have a peaceful protest. But as always, throughout history, the people in power never want to step down. And eventually what happens is they lash out with violence, and they strike out and draw first blood. And this is what always seems to happen. If you look back in history, it's the same exact pattern over and over and over. Now, out in Minneapolis, St. Paul, it seems like the police state is continuing right now because residents there saw black helicopters buzzing over the rooftops and in between buildings. They're called Night Stalkers, or more formally the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The Department of Defense is in charge of the operation, while Minneapolis and St. Paul police are playing a supportive role. But none of the departments will comment on the mysterious mission, only apologizing for alarming the people in the town. Because, again, we saw this happen in Houston, Miami. We had drills in California, where there were helicopters flying in. They were using gunfire, and everyone was surprised. This is conditioning to get everyone used to these black helicopters flying around, getting people used to the police in fatigues, carrying assault rifles in gas masks, and we can see that this is definitely continuing. Now, it seems like this classified report on that Malaysian airline MH370, that just completely disappeared. They're saying that classified information from the computers of officials involved in the investigation into the disappearance of this airliner were stolen. The computers of the high-ranking officials are said to have been hacked, and the information was stolen. And guess who they're blaming it on? China. They're saying China infected the computers with malware. About 30 computers were infected, and the information was taken, so now we don't know what happened to this plane. Well, of course we do. They're using it for a false flag event. We understand that Israel has one just sitting there, which is pretty much an exact duplicate, but it has the ability to fly longer ranges. So we can see right now they're trying to cover their trail at this time. Now, it seems like on August 26, it looks like the EU, Ukraine, and Eurasian trio are going to meet in Minsk to talk about the Ukraine issue, and I believe Putin and other leaders will be there to discuss what has been going on, but we'll have to see how this turns out, if there's any headway that's going to be made, and most likely nothing will happen. Now, as we know, Poroshenko in Ukraine signed that new law where police, can fire upon any terrorist, no questions asked, use lethal force. The government, all they have to do is say, yes, terrorist, 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 and they can just shoot them. And right now what's been happening is that about 3,000 policemen have left the Ukrainian Interior Ministry. About 1,490 policemen were dismissed in eastern Ukraine for betrayal of oath, and about 1,227 policemen had pretty much quit the service on their own free will, saying, we are not going to do this right now. Now, the Interior Minister, Arsen Avakov, called for replacing all these police officers. Actually, he needs about 20,000 more policemen on the force because of how many of these police officers are saying, you know what, we're not going to be involved in this. These are our fellow people. We're not going to be firing on them, so we're going to pretty much get out of it. And they are desperately seeking additional forces to, pretty much come down on all those people that they deem as terrorists. Now, as we know, the humanitarian convoy is making its way to the southeastern section, and the Donetsk People's Republic, they're reporting that they're seeing a lot of activity of several subversive Ukrainian law enforcement groups on the supposed route, and they're fearing that they're going to launch an attack on these trucks so they never reach their destination. And we're going to have to watch this very closely, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do attack these trucks and pretty much take them out. Now, we understand that we have this pivot to Asia, and President Obama was out there saying that they have to contain China, and we also understand more military assets are being sent up into Eastern Europe. And if you want to hear more, you can go back to my past reports. I repeated this quite often, where all the military assets are going. But in Guam, as we know, this the United States central bankers have military bases there. They have anti-ballistic missile systems and location of about all around this area, facing China. And this pretty much is part of the encircling of China. And right now, it seems like they're bringing more military assets into this region. And it seems like that about 60% of the Navy is out in the Pacific, and we're going to have about 60% of our combat air forces out in the Pacific, and this is coming from one of the generals that is now visiting the area, where they're saying that they're keeping everything up, they're bringing more in, and they're encircling China and containing China right now. Now, it looks like there's going to be many more airstrikes in Iraq. They haven't let up, even though they were only doing the airstrikes to protect the Yazidis, which was a false flag. Basically, what they're doing is protecting the area from the tribes that are rising up in Iraq. And it seems like American fighter jets and drones conducted nearly a dozen airstrikes in Iraq since Tuesday. And this is coming from a U.S. official. And we see right now that this is really building up in this area. The Islamic State is controlled by the United States, by the UK, by Israel, by other Arab nations, and other private Western central bank countries. And they're put in there for chaos. They need to take control of all the Middle Eastern countries because the tribes are all rising up there, and they only have a certain window to get into these countries. And of course, we already know that Libya was bombed by unknown aircraft, but a lot of the bomb fragments are the United States, belong to the United States. So we can say that the U.S. has a lot of aircraft carriers in the region. They're bombing Iraq. It wouldn't take too much to fly some jets over to Libya and help out the government forces over there, which might have happened. But what we're seeing right now is that they put a no-fly zone over Syria, and we see that they're using the Islamic State right now to say that you attacked us, so we're attacking America. Of course, the corporate media is out there saying, yes, they have attacked America, and we can see how these events are going to continually come as we move into later August, into fall, because they are prepping for the main event. Now, Syria absolutely knows what's going on, and the officials in Damascus on Wednesday warned the United States against delivering strikes at the Islamic State in Syria. Any unilateral action beyond UN Security Council Resolution 2170 will be considered an act of aggression against an independent state. U.S. should refrain from using the international community's resolution to cover for interference into internal affairs of other states. The UN Security Council Resolution of August 15th aims to combat terrorist groups, namely the Islamic State, in response to the growing threat in Iraq and Syria. So we can see already Syria is giving warnings right now saying, you better not do this. And of course we know who's backing Syria. It's Russia. Who's backing Iran? China and Russia. So this is not going to go over well once the United States goes ahead and starts bombing Syria. And we know they're going to do this. We know they've been building up for this, and this is why they placed the Islamic State into this region, because they need to take control of the Middle East. They are losing control. Now, to keep this propaganda going, all of a sudden, we're starting to see reports about the Syrian Electronic Army again. You know, the hackers that have been breaking into CNN, other government websites, saying that China is dumping the United States Treasury bonds. You know, they put so many different things up there, but what they're saying now is that pro-Syrian government hackers are spreading malware to unsuspecting internet users through websites, popular apps, and social media. Syria has moved into the front line. Many activities in cyberspace have been linked to Syria now. Well, they're linked to China, they're linked to Russia, they're linked to Syria now. And we can't forget about North Korea, but not so much. But we're seeing now a big play up on the Syrian hackers, because this is what they're intending to do. And when I say they, it's the central bank of the United States government. Their goal has always been the same: get into Syria any way you possibly can. And we can see this is exactly what they're doing. Yeah, they changed their tactics because their previous tactics didn't work. And this goes on to say that the Syrian Electronic Army is continually cyber attacking different sites, and they're becoming more advanced. They're an advanced actor, and we know it's coming from Syria. Well, like I said again, it is very difficult if you're that advanced. You cannot tell where it is coming from, and all of a sudden they're now blaming a lot of this on Syria. So we can see they are definitely building the propaganda up because we know what is coming. They are definitely paving the road here, the groundwork, moving towards their objective, and they're not going to stop. Now, it looks like the United States is out there, and they've looked at the video, and the U.S. government says, yes, we authenticated, it is real. And I'm going to say right now, as soon as they did this, as soon as they came out and said this, I always think the opposite. It's a complete fake. And every time I look at this, I see more and more things, especially, you know, he has a birthmark on the chin, the one by his nose, and as we keep looking deeper into this video, we can find more anomalies, and this, again, is a false flag event. They're building the propaganda because they need to get into Syria. And of course, President Barack Obama was out there, and he's saying that, you know, we will continue to confront the Islamic State extremists despite the brutal murder of James Foley. Obama says the Islamic State abducts women, children, and tortures, rapes, enslaves, and kills people. He said the Islamic targets Christians and other minorities and aims to commit genocide. Now, it's pretty much the same thing the U.S. government is doing in Ukraine to the southeastern people. It's the same thing that Israel is doing to the Palestinians in Gaza. So this is all part of the same system, and the Islamic State takes the orders from the U.S. government, from Israel, from UK. So we would expect to see the same exact things, wouldn't we? Now, former CIA and NSA Director Michael Hayden said Wednesday that the Islamic State is currently much stronger and larger than al-Qaeda was when it attacked the United States on September 11th. When asked if we don't step up attacks on the group, Hayden predicted the violence would worsen. This type of situation doesn't heal itself. The Islamic State is deadlier, more fierce. They're more like a government unto themselves. They have an army. They're organized. And if they create some type of an event in the United States, it is going to be much, much bigger than 9/11. We have to remember, this is the end game. This is what they've been building up for. The dollar is collapsing. The economy is collapsing. Europe is collapsing. Europe is getting prepared for riots, protests. The United States is getting ready for riots, protests. They need to do this one and do it big. They need to convince the people that this terrorist group is the worst that we've ever seen in our lives, and we need to go after them. And of course, they're going to have some type of special event here in the United States. And again, I've said this many times that it will be a multi-pronged event. I mean, and of course, they're going to bring Russia into this, they'll bring China into this, because we're going to see this in many phases where they hit certain areas with dirty nukes or chemical weapons or biological, like Ebola, something like this, and then all of a sudden they'll say that, oh, Russia saw an opportunity or China saw an opportunity to hit the financial institutions and the banks need to be shut down. Then what they're going to say is they just gave the green light to bring down the power grid in certain areas of the country. This is why the president wants a switch that he can turn on and broadcast to every single person's TV, radio at the same time. This is why the stock exchange, the NASDAQ, the BAT system have the kill switch, because this is all getting prepared. They have the 911 system is going to be interconnected, because this way it's easier for them to get reports and put it out on the corporate news saying, oh my God, look what's happening in all these parts of the world all at once. So you can see how this has all been prepped. They're all getting ready. You can see that the militarization of the police is pretty much complete. They're already starting the drills of black helicopters flying over the cities. We'll probably see this ramp up. They are getting prepared for the major event. And we need to be prepared. And how do we do this? Well, you buy gold and silver to protect your wealth. If you cannot do this, what I would do is I would stock up on water, food, extra medicine, toiletry. I would definitely have some type of weapon. I would make sure that I have the supplies that I need, because once the dollar starts to devalue, it's going to get more and more difficult to get supplies, because the income that you're bringing in is not going to keep up with the inflation of products, and people are going to get desperate. They're going to run to the market. Power is going to be out. People won't be able to access their bank accounts. It is going to be a total mess, and this is why everyone needs to make sure that they have enough supplies to sustain themselves for at least 6 months. And by doing this, you can stay in your home. You can protect yourself. You don't have to go out there into the crowds, into the riots, because you don't know what it's going to look like. Now, some people live in better neighborhoods than others, and then, especially the more populated areas, those are going to be the worst hit. And as you move further away into the suburbs, into where there's less and less people, it will be a little bit better. But what we're seeing right now, as we can see in Ferguson, is that, the police are out there, and they're all in military garb, and they don't have problems coming down on people whatsoever. And this kind of makes me nervous, because they're not there to protect you. They're there to keep order, to control you. You have to remember, DHS will be activated at this point. All local law enforcement will have to come into compliance with them and take orders from them. And you will definitely see a different side of DHS at this point. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.